Hey there, Mike.
Hey Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Here we are. Wanted to kind of get to know you and just ask you some questions about, why you do what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll dig in.
So really to start, we've known each other probably, I don't know, a little bit over 10 years, and our paths have crossed a few times.
Yep.
But I think that it's really interesting that we both kind of ended up with our careers kind of focusing on trying to help healthcare providers. And so, you know, we got all kinds of time, and might as well hear your story. I want to
Yeah.
understand.
Yes. So I would say, as far as how I kind of got into this niche, I mean, it wasn't something I necessarily like sought after, like when I started my career. It was actually quite the opposite. Like when I first started my career back in my undergrad, I thought I wanted to work with, high level athletes, and that was the thing. I kind of set myself up for that. And then right before I graduated, I moved down to Indianapolis and I met my mentor, who's a physical therapist down there, and got exposed to that side of, fitness and that completely changed everything for me. So while I was down there, I was working with, you know, athletes, but I was also working with your everyday people. And I got exposed to I had the strength and conditioning background. I got more experience doing that while I was down there for that internship. But then I also learned, the more on the physical therapy side of things, and that kind of like made me like I don't think I want to do the athlete only thing. I really enjoy working with people that want to work hard, and that's a lot of fun. And as long as they want to work hard, I don't really care what their goals are. And then so like that kind of evolved over time to where eventually I opened up my own facility, which I think you and I met maybe shortly after I had opened up, maybe like a year or so after that. And during that time, it wasn't necessarily like when I opened the facility, that wasn't my main target, but it kind of evolved into that as I started getting better and better at what I did. I started attracting a different type of clientele, and I started getting more and more medical professionals coming through. And so then, when I had my physicians come in, get results, whether it be they're trying to get rid of aches and pains, boost their energy, get stronger, lose weight, whatever, they end up referring other physicians, other medical professionals that end up coming in. And before you know it, almost half my client roster are physicians and other medical professionals. And so now, over the last year and a half, I put a really big emphasis on, making sure that's who I'm directing my messaging toward. And, I love working with the medical community. They're usually people, it's rare that I have a medical professional come in and they're not somebody that like is a go-getter and, wants to work hard. And I really resonate with that personality and that mindset. So I tend to do very well with those clients. And so, yeah, so here we are now.
No, that's awesome. I mean, for for us, it was kind of, my career. Uh, it's not about my story, but kind of came to that, for similar reasons. And actually, we love to really help. We want to help people, and that's kind of, it was kind of a natural kind of lead into helping people who are also helping people. It was a lot of our clients are actually same stage of life. They have a couple kids. They're starting their own practices or doing something, or wanna, building their business very similar to us. And so we have some neat synergies, I think, with our clients. I mean, so really, so it sounds like the big portion. I mean, I kind of saw some of your marketing on Instagram. I was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. I really, really liked what you were doing, and that was kind of why I reached out.
Yeah.
How did you get deep into social media like this?
It was a necessary evil. It wasn't always something like, something that I enjoyed. I'm kind of shifting my mindset to get myself in that place where I don't view it as a chore. In fact, I told one of my clients recently, like, what I would rather have happen is where I'm in like a location with like 10 other, and they fly in 100 physicians, and they're like, okay, go to work. Best one gets all the clients. Like, that would be more my thing. I'd be like all in for that. But it's one of those things I've had to get a consistent pattern with. Right? So like the social media stuff, like doing videos, I made a promise to myself recently that I would do 90 consecutive days of a video. So what I do is like I'll write out my content, and then I'll just start recording. And so like I'll knock out, 3 to 6 videos within like a 15 to 20 minute time frame, go edit those, and I'll throw them up and schedule.
Well, what's really cool about that is that it's really informative and really helpful. I mean, I've watched a handful, and they're educational. They're helpful. It's not just some sort of high the information is pretty is pretty good and high level, and so that I'm sure helps. But are you getting a lot of clients that way, or helping spread your message?
I haven't had a ton of clients through social media. I mean, like the other thing I do is I have a newsletter, and I've always enjoyed writing. So that's the other side of it. But like the majority of my clientele is coming through word of mouth, and that's how it's been for so long, especially with the physicians and medical professionals. As of late, like probably over the last like 6 to 12 months, it's really picked up in that regard. And so now, I got in October, I'm shooting for October. So I've written a book for physicians and medical professionals called the Physician Vitality Playbook. And I'm going to be releasing that. Goal is we're on our 3rd round of editing. The goal is to have that released and live on Amazon in October. And so worst case, it'd be before, November or December, but definitely before the 2024.
Mike, we'd have to get a copy of that beforehand and have you back on the show.
Yeah, definitely. My editor's in the UK, and he's helping me out with this whole process. Like one of my clients wrote a book, and he connected me with this guy, and he's been amazing. And he's helping me through this whole process with all the stuff that I would have no idea what to do, like getting ISBN numbers and printing options and, things to consider when, posting on a Kindle with an iPad versus, a Kindle Fire. So like, it's all new to me, but like, it's been pretty fun and exciting. And I'll definitely be shooting some advanced copies over to people once everything's done and it's fine.
Signed copies.
There you go. Yeah. For those who care. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, that's got to be a huge undertaking. How much time is that taking for you?
So I started writing. So I kind of I do good with making promises to myself of and just setting up like consistency every single day. So I think I started writing, July. I want to say I started writing in March, and I just had a goal of writing 600 words every day. So I didn't care how much I wrote, but as long as I hit that threshold, I was good. Some days I'd hit way more. Some days I would struggle to hit that 600 mark, but, or maybe it was 300. Honestly, I can't remember, but regardless, I set that as my thing. And it took me, I don't know. I had my final edition over to the editor probably 2 months ago. So we'll say 2 months, maybe it took me to put together. And that's I've got clients I work with full time. Outside of that, got a 2-year-old at home, and trying to be a good husband and father, and and taking care of myself. So it's that wasn't the only thing I had going on. Hence why it took me a couple months.
On top of the daily writing, you've got 90 days of video production also that you're doing.
That started the 90-day video production thing. That started separately. That started after I was done writing. So that was
full-time jobs. You got your full-time job plus you're a new dad, relatively new dad, and then you got this social media writing piece that that you have to carve out time for too. It's a lot. It's a lot to juggle.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of, there's a lot of strategizing too, because it's like one of those things like with the 90 days of consecutive video, for example. I'm kind of I'm posting these and I'm looking back of like, oh God, this could be better and this could be better, but also trying to stay out of my head of like, okay, just get consistent for 90 days, get it done, and then we can look at how can we refine this process and make it better. Because that's
I,
one of the big things that's like been a struggle for me is like I get thinking about it too much rather than just acting on it. And then it's like once that habit is there, okay, now we can start to make that a little bit more pretty over time.
Sure.
We don't have to be perfect right off the get-go.
yeah, I think with anything, it's the consistency, doing it, making it a part of your routine, just like eating better. I would imagine a lot of the components of what you're doing, you're probably preaching to your clients consistency. I mean, because you're not gonna, a lot of times, I mean, even for myself, it's like, if you're working out a couple of times a week, you're not gonna see any major gains, or and so it's like, if you get stuck in a rut, it's like, what does it hurt? I can have pizza and beer this tonight or whatever, where I mean, it's a big thing.
Yeah. Well, that's why one of the things I preach is like consistency over time gets you the results you want. It's like none of this is going to happen overnight. And what works for you now isn't necessarily going to work for you 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 2 years, 5 years from now. So it's always like this evolution of the process, and kind of refining it as time goes on, and just being consistent with that baseline that you set for yourself and building from there.
So we kind of hit on, doctors, physicians, dentists. They're kind of type A personalities. They have, significant, school. They're really smart, experts in their, high level thinkers, and being able to process. And so, I think it's like an easy segue into, talk to us about some of your favorite success stories with some of your clients that you've had recently.
Yeah, I think back to like one of my all-time favorites is I had a client, their son has cerebral palsy. And so when she came to me, her low back and her knees were killing her from having to move her son in his wheelchair. And at the time, I believe he might have only been 8 or 9 years old. And so like, she's like, he's only going to continue to grow. And if I don't get stronger and fix these things, how is he going to get around? And so, she started training with me, and I think it was pretty quick actually. Like it only took her about 6 months, and like all her pains were gone. She was, talking about how her son's wheelchair got bigger and she was able to handle it with no extra pains. Stories like that have a lot of sentimental value to them, really hit home. And then looking at it from another recent one that I had one of my physicians, that will not name their specialty, I will not disclose any information other than the physician of mine, was telling me about an incident that happened in the OR where he basically had to twist his body into a certain position and perform this maneuver to help save this person's life, right? And he's like, I would have never been able to do that like 3 years ago. And he's like, not only that, he's like, my body doesn't feel like I destroyed myself after the fact. So hearing like how that transfers to the daily, you were talking about people helping people earlier, right? That's one of the most profound things I see and experience with the physicians and medical professionals I work with, is when I'm able to help them live a higher quality of life, how much the trickle effect goes into work, goes into their family, goes into them, like not even just from the physical side of things, but the mental side of things. And like, they're just able to enjoy their lives more, whether it's like, I can now play tennis and not have knee pain, or like my sailing's much stronger than it used to be. Like, those are a couple activities that like I have my medical professionals are involved with, and I hear that feedback, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
So
we'll never really know the impact that we do have, but it's immeasurable. And to and Nick hit it on the head. This is about helping people who help people, and that's those are two great stories.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really interesting conversation, because normally, we're talking about other areas of business and how to kind of coach somebody or refine their skills, but this is like more important. This is like someone's health and well-being. It's all kind of tied together, but you can't be your best. You can't really, if you are a dentist, a doctor, you gotta, it's all kind of, if you're eating better, if you're, feeling better, you have a better mindset. You have a clear conscious, clear head, can make better decisions. And I think so. It's like, it's a really interesting conversation. So it sounds like you got some pretty good compliments from those docs, or those. Is that some of the best you've ever had, or do you have any other good compliments that, from what you've done that make you feel nice and warm inside?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, compliments, like, I don't know, the stories are like more of what like hits me more than a compliment. But story wise, like, I had, there's really, really small things that happen, like stuff that you and I would take for granted, but for somebody else, they can literally be life changing. So, for example, I had a client, he was in his early 70s. He had a neurological condition to where both of his lower legs, um, they only functioned at maybe about 10% of their capacity. So he was always walking around with a cane. And one of the things that he could not do is he could not put his foot up on his knee to tie his shoes in the morning, because he can't go down to the floor. So he'd take his leg, pop it up on his knee, and then he could do the one shoe, but he couldn't do the other shoe. He'd always have to have his wife tie his shoe. And then one day he came in and he's like, Mike, like last week I've like tied both of my shoes every day. I'm like, dude, that's insane. Like, that's awesome. Like, I saw how much joy that brought him telling me that. And like, it gives you a different, like, it makes you hit the pause button and realize, like, you say that out loud to somebody and they're gonna be like, okay, yeah, cool, he could tie his shoes. But if you stop for a second to put yourself in that position of what it would actually be like to not be able to do that, and then all of a sudden have, something that we take for granted that we do multiple times every single day, and now that person has that ability to do something just as basic as that, like, that can be completely life-changing for somebody. And so that's another one of my favorite stories.
That's really cool.
Sometimes the little things are the biggest things, right? So
Absolutely.
those are some amazing stories, and we love hearing about them, but it's not always so straightforward, and there's bumps along the way. So can we talk about what are some of the cautionary tales, or some of the biggest challenges that you see with your physicians and working with them?
Yeah, so I think that there's a few things, like, when the majority of physicians come to work with me, one of the common complaints, or where they're seeking help, is chronic aches and pains. So whether they operate or not, whether they're a surgeon or not, that's pretty common. And energy levels are the other thing. My energy sucks, and I hurt all the time. And so then I'll look at like what they've been doing prior to coming to see me as far as their fitness solution goes. And a lot of times what they're doing is like these really generalized solutions that, if you haven't worked out in a long time and you want to lose like 10 to 15 pounds and add a little bit of strength and get a little bit better cardio, like, you can do these really general solutions that'll work for you for a few months. That's why when, somebody starts up with like a group class generally and they haven't worked out for a long time, you'll hear they'll be all bought in, like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. I've lost 15 pounds. I feel so much better. And then eventually that plateaus over time. And then it becomes more of, if they end up staying with that solution, it's more of the community aspect that they're staying for than the actual results. But and that's what I see with the, the physicians and medical professionals that come in here, is they'll have those generalized solutions that aren't really moving the needle and addressing those things that are specific to them, not only as individuals, but just looking at their career and their lifestyle, and taking those things into consideration. So not having like a customized program made for them and getting coached by somebody that's qualified is like one of the main problems that I see. Another thing we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, we talked about like how they can, all the positive qualities that they possess, and they know how to grind. Like they can put the work in. But oftentimes that can be, at least when it comes to their health and fitness, that can be a little bit of a detriment, especially if something's hurting and you continue to push through it and just accept it as like, oh, this is normal, right? Or the other side of it being that, they'll grind and push during the workouts and run themselves into the ground. And they think that because they're laying in a puddle of their sweat and they can barely breathe when they're done, well, that was a good workout. And it's like, well, was it? Because like, what kind of program are we building on here? Right. So generally with a training program, we look at specific things that we're trying to get the body to adapt to and express itself, whether it be strength, or building lean muscle, or becoming more athletic, which is going to have, whether somebody knows it or not, that stuff is important. Because if somebody, for example, I used tennis earlier, somebody likes to play tennis, there's your carryover to the tennis court to not only help you perform better, but also decrease your chance of injury. And so you could plug and play whatever activity it is that somebody likes to engage in. That's going to make their body more prepared for that particular activity. So if you're following how you feel rather than following a structured program, that's probably not going to work out very well. In most cases, I see it not work out very well for people at all. The final thing I'd say is, the other thing they'll see is people come in, they've been doing the same routine for like 20 years, right? So they've been doing the same thing they've been doing since residency, or since dental school, whatever. And, it's familiar. And the thing that disguises it as they still think it's effective is they've mastered two things, because they still look, generally these people, they'll still look pretty fit. Is one, they've mastered like portion control. So they haven't, like, they're relatively the same weight they were like 15, 20 years ago, right? So they can attribute that to the training program. And so the second thing, I lost my train of thought.
Forgive me, because I'm gonna put you on the. Oh yeah, go ahead. You got it.
Yeah. The other thing was they've consistently been working out for 20 years, right? Yeah. And so putting those two things together, like, I think there's a massive underappreciation for a lot of people that go to the gym that have done those two things, because it's like, hey, you've won the hardest part, and that's being consistent with like your eating and your training. Now let's take it to another level and give you something that's more specific to you and what you want to achieve. And now your progress is really going to accelerate. So those would be like the big three things that, like, I see, a lot of physicians and medical professionals make the mistake of when they first come to see me. And I don't even know if I really want to say make the mistake of, because it's like making the mistake would be like, better, but you go ahead and do it anyway. And oftentimes it's one of those things where they haven't been educated on that aspect of it or had that perspective shared with them.
Yeah. I mean, for my career, I think I've been in metamorphosis, always adding to the puzzle, but I've never really had a complete puzzle. I'm always struggling with this or struggling with that, or I'm really knocking some things out of the park and leaving other things. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it is, I guess what I would say, which, as kind of a testament to what you're talking about, is that until I really had a coach, even a real estate coach, I did great in my career. I made a lot of money, made a lot of deals, met a lot of people, but I didn't have a good, I didn't have somebody pushing me. I didn't have somebody to check up on and ask, difficult questions to. And I think it's the same thing as what really was your role with your clients is somebody high level done this, and can kind of help guide them, because believe me, we know these people are pretty smart. They know a lot, almost too much sometimes. And so it's hard to sometimes get or get them to take advice until they recognize they really need it.
Yeah. To that end, and I'm going to put you on the spot, Mike. Our doctors, Nick talked about, they're beautifully educated and they're often the smartest person in the room. And so when it comes to shifting perspectives and getting people to embrace something new, I imagine that's going to be difficult, playing in the third thing that you mentioned. So how, do you have anything you can talk about or a strategy to help shift people's perspectives and adopt something new when it's seemingly already working for them?
Yeah. So like an example would be like, and sometimes it's going to depend on the individual. So like,
Sure.
there are going to be people that come in here that they've tried and failed so many times that they're ready for something different. Like they're ready to be coached up and they're open to whatever. And especially like I mentioned, like if it's, a physician, medical professional, chances are they referred to me anyway. So I've already kind of had that
Sure.
trust, built in there already. But then there's times that it doesn't work out like that. And that can be tough from a coaching perspective, because then I got to utilize an attribute that I don't necessarily utilize so well or express so well all the time, and that's patience. And because and it's got better over the years because I've learned not to take things personally, for one, but two, it's just having an understanding of psychology and like how everybody's going to be different of how they interpret information, how they process information, how they use that information. And then the other side of it too is just like the opportunity to build that relationship with them that doesn't have anything to do with, the stuff that we're talking about. So I get to know them as people, and they get more comfortable with me. They get more receptive to like what I have to say. I have had, like, I've got one physician that works with me, super brilliant guy, one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And so much so that even though he came to me for help, he was pretty resistant to my approach. And so we would have discussions about biomechanics and things of that nature that would go in great detail. And then finally, I started to win him over a little bit with the more conversations I had along those lines, where I could connect the dots when he was moving during his sessions. And I could stop and say, hey, remember when I said this about the hip? He'd be like, yeah. I said, that's happening when you're going down in your squat right now. Oh, okay. And so like that, I guess, in that situation, I got his respect because, my profession, like that's not super common that, you can find somebody that can have those type of conversations and understand what's going on to that degree. And so I could see why a physician would come in here and be super skeptical of like, this dude with a bachelor's, what other letters has he got next to his name? How does he know? Why should I trust him? Like, so, that can be a big challenge, but it's really dependent on the individual and where they're at with their own journey. And then also how they got to me. And then once they get to me, then the other final piece would be just like my ability to connect with them as people and build that relationship.
I appreciate that. And, it reminds me of the tall task we have every day, especially with new clients, where we have to develop quick trust with them. And often it's just a matter of demonstrating that we understand their unique needs as doctors, and whether it's the pitfalls, the challenges, or design, layout, workflow and such. Once we are able to demonstrate that we understand their world and their needs, the opportunity opens up for us. And, and because
I would say that we can speak their language, at least with as it pertains to their facilities. And so, but I mean, a generalist real estate broker, I'm sure they can bumble their way through, but they don't know the vendors who we know, kind of, all those vendors, from architects, specific contractors who focus on their specific needs, and also equipment suppliers that are buzzing around and trying to solicit them every couple of weeks to their office.
Yeah.
What like, for example, let's just say I showed up at your gym tomorrow, new client, you're going to interview me, you're going to try to get to the understand who I am, gauge my fitness, and talk to us about your process.
Yeah. So like I just had an assessment probably about an hour before we started this call. So for that particular individual, before they came in, I had a bunch of paperwork for them to fill out. And so like what that paperwork, it'd be the general stuff that you would expect. But then I'd take a dive into what they've been doing for their fitness, for the last, as much as they're willing to share. Could be their lifetime. But I give open-ended questions that are related to their fitness, to their current lifestyle, to their stress levels. What's their, are they married? Do they have kids? What's their sleep like? How much sleep are they getting? Is it high quality sleep? So I have all these questions on this questionnaire so that it helps me prepare for when they come in, and we can make best use of that time when they come in. I also have like another form on there where I want to understand where they're coming from, of what they feel their biggest struggles are. Because sometimes what they think their biggest struggle is might not actually be their biggest struggle. It can either be a little bit more complex than they think it is, or it could be much more simple than they think it is. And it may not have anything to do with what they actually think it is, right? So they may think, I'm not working out hard enough. And it's like, no, actually, you're working out plenty hard. You just only are sleeping 4 hours a night, and you starving yourself at like 1,100 calories a day. Like we gotta get some more sleep and bump those calories up. Now, how we do that, that's a longer conversation for us to have to figure out the right strategy to implement to do those things. So I had the paperwork, like they fill that out before they come in, and when they come in, and then I take them through a movement screen. And the purpose of the movement screen is like, I'll have them on their feet just doing some generalized basic movements. And then I'll put them on I got a big like massage type table that I put them on, and I got some orthopedic tests that I'll do. And I'm assessing joint range of motion and things of that nature, so that I can understand what their structure allows them to do, so that I'm not giving them exercises and lifts that their body's not ready to adapt to. So for example, like if I get somebody comes in, and let's just like a super basic, let's say I'm having them do like a body weight squat, and I have them doing the body weight squat, and they have a major shift to the right side as they go down into their squat. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Let me put them on the table, and I can test them out on the table and see where that limitation might be. We can go address that with a specific exercise I might have to correct that. Or depending on the individual and where they're coming from, may not be the right time to do something like that. So maybe we're definitely not going to put a bar on their back and have them squatting if they can't load the pattern correctly, right? Because that's not in their best interest definitely for the long haul, but even the short term. Like, you never know. When I look at risk reward, like, is it worth it? And if it's not, we go a different direction. And so that'll be like the first half of the assessment, is just doing the movement screen and the orthopedic testing. Then we'll come in my office and we'll talk about all the stuff that they filled out on their form. So their nutrition stuff, their lifestyle stuff, and see where a good starting place is to focus on outside of the gym, with some sort of habit that they are confident that they can consistently knock out. And then we'll have that discussion of, okay, you're going to consistently knock this out. You can expect the needle to move this much, if it's a weight loss client, for example, over the first month, if you're consistent with this, like 90% of the time, you can expect something like, 3 to 5 pounds of weight loss or something along those lines. Right. So it's important to set up those expectations and be honest and thorough with that, so that they're not, thinking that this is going to be the golden ticket. I've hired a trainer now. It's all smooth sailing from here. It's like, well, yeah, that's part of the process, but we need to be very mindful about this. And I use the example of giving somebody like a habit outside of the gym to focus on. sometimes I don't have people focus on anything other than just being consistent with getting in and working out regularly. Because oftentimes what you'll see is like people naturally will start to eat better, and they'll start to be a little bit more mindful of the other things like sleep. Okay, I'm not going to stay up scrolling on my phone for, 45 minutes once I get in bed. I'm just going to go to bed. So sometimes it's like a waiting game of just seeing like, okay, how does this person do once they have some routine in their life where, their body's feeling different, their mind's feeling different. And once that's into play, maybe everything else just starts to get better.
I mean, it sounds like you set up, a dialogue where they have specific goals, but they're doing, specific routines to kind of achieve this stuff. And you didn't say it, but I'm going to infer that they pretty much have to, track it and report it, because I mean, there's consistency, but it's part of the, having it sink into your head is not just the going and lifting the weights or jogging for 40 minutes or whatever their plan is, but it's kind of keeping score, making sure day in, day out that they're really doing staying on track. I mean, I would imagine anyways.
Yeah. And I have like, so luckily with technology evolving the way it has, I've got my own app now. And so like what I can do, I can set that up. So let's say somebody was going to have, we decided like their breakfast was the first thing that they were going to focus on from a nutrition standpoint. And we did, after talking things out, they decided that like something quick and easy, that tastes good would help them be consistent. So we decided, okay, we're going to do a smoothie for breakfast. So we're doing some frozen fruit and veggies. We're mixing in some healthy fat in there, like some avocado. We'll mix it up with some, whey protein powder and unsweetened almond milk. Okay. And so I can set that up on the app for daily where it'll prompt them in the morning, 6 a.m. Hey, don't forget to have your breakfast smoothie. So then it's like figuring out ways that we can kind of hack their daily life and make it so that the likelihood that they follow through on these things is elevated. I can do the same thing with a workout through the app, or whatever it happens to be. But the more the consistency is there, the better off we're going to be. So I try to leverage that any way that I can.
Well, let's talk about technology. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Let's talk about technology for a second. That's really neat, and obviously, it's what's allowing us to do this from our respective offices and homes now. So you have an app, and you're able to program. It sounds like meal plan and workouts. Are you also doing workouts, like a live experience, if you will? How does that work?
So I don't do the. When COVID first happened, I did do that and then realized how inefficient use of time that was. So I do have the workouts on the app. And then in addition to that, I don't have it live, but I have coaching videos for the 400 plus exercises and lifts that I have programmed on the app are of me coaching the client through that particular lift or exercise. So
I love that. It's you. It's a video.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
I mean, I could literally pull it up real quick if you want.
Yeah, we'd love to see that.
Yeah,
okay.
Why not? Do I have to give permission? I don't know.
Let me turn it sideways because I'll make the screen bigger. Okay, so I know it's kind of hard to see, but like you can see, like I'm coaching the client through that particular exercise. Right. And so they'll have a video like that with every lift or exercise that I program within their program, so that like if they, whether there's somebody that works with me in person and online, or if it's somebody that's just strictly online, they've always got that access there to watch that video, get dialed in on the cues that are involved and then go execute it. And if they need, if something's not feeling right, always encourage them to like shoot video, send it over to me, and then I'll shoot them some feedback over.
Wow,
that's great.
That's really cool. Want to dive into some fun stuff a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
So you got a wife and a 2-year-old. How would that 2-year-old describe what you do for a living?
So my wife is Arabic, and so in the house I'm not dad or daddy, I'm Baba. So she would say, Baba, go to gym. And that's what she would describe. So actually this morning when we were getting ready for school, that was Baba, you going to gym? Yep, going to the gym. So that's how she would describe it.
That's super cute.
Yeah.
That's super cute. If you could, describe your perfect day, like what, if you had one day left on earth and you could do whatever you wanted, what would you do?
You know, it's gonna sound corny, but like I would definitely do what I do for a living, at least for an hour. Um, that'd be one thing. And then like after that, like actually I talked about this with my wife like probably a couple months ago. And I said, like one day eventually, like if I could have like a perfect day,
Yeah.
I coach, I get to, spend as much time as I want on my health and my fitness. And I get to spend some time with you guys. And at the end of the day, like we're hopping on an airplane and we're going somewhere and traveling wherever we want to go. Now, if I only had one day, I don't know, that'd probably look a little bit different. So yeah, I don't know if there was like one thing on my bucket list to check off. Man, I don't even know. But my perfect day though, that'd be like, I'm doing what I love to do. I'm getting to take care of myself. Like I play basketball. If I want to go to the gun range, shoot guns, like whatever. I'm getting that time to go do that type of stuff.
What would you eat? Would you eat healthy? Or
well, okay. So if there was like my last day,
yeah,
100% I'm going to Anthony's in town and I'm getting that Anthony's gourmet. Yeah. Because I still like that's one. So that is one thing when I travel, regardless of, well, I guess not regardless of where I go, because I'm definitely like, I'm not going to get pizza down in Mexico. But like when I go to like a major city, I've been trying, I love the Chicago style pizza with the sauce on top and everything else in the middle. So I've been trying to find one better than Anthony's, and I've been to Chicago, tried multiple places there. Nobody compares. So go Anthony's.
So, except for maybe flying anywhere in the world, you've got Father's Day and your birthday. I mean, that's a modest, reasonable, day spent, if you will. And so you got at least 2 a year, guaranteed.
Yeah. So on Father's Day, one of my demographics that I work with is I work with a lot of basketball players. And so my college guys were in town this summer. So on Father's Day, we went up to Wheeler Park in Ann Arbor and we ran 2-on-2, played some ball. So that was like perfect for me.
Is Wheeler Park still? I mean, like I grew up in Ann Arbor, and that was like Gary Grant, Michigan players used to play there every now and then. It was like you get some serious pickup games at Wheeler Park, and also sometimes at Burns Park.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wheeler. What I like about Wheeler is it's so small that like we played 2-on-2 and we just played full court. Like it was so much fun.
Yeah, no, it's a cool little neighborhood right there for sure.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I mean, I would say for us, one of the biggest challenges when when we're talking to a potential client is that they don't, if they were going to relocate or start up a healthcare practice, for example, it's really outrageously expensive. I mean, it can cost $200 a foot just to construct the interior of a medical clinic. There's a lot of rooms, a lot of special materials, a lot of plumbing because of a lot of sinks and whatnot. And so it's really scary because they know they only have one. They have one shot to kind of get it right, and so that uncertainty I don't know if this, translates well to some of your experience, but I mean, do you see anything like that happening in your business, that feeling, because like
So you mean like, just like, do I feel like is there anything that, like, as far as maybe whether it be like my personal business or like the industry as a whole, that I feel uneasy about?
not you, your clients?
Oh, my clients. Oh,
Investing
okay.
in your future, right? I mean, that's scary. On a small scale or large scale, it's scary. It's the idea of investing in your future, whether it's to build out a space or to maintain your body so you can continue to practice, for until you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So just want to make sure I understand. So you're asking me do my clients have any of that apprehension with like investing in their health and fitness? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, like, do you see that as do you see it as that apprehension as a challenge to your business, or is there?
Oh, yeah. So trying to think of like how to say this and not sound like completely arrogant.
We can always edit it out.
But I charge much more than my competitors, and I don't have I've got a wait list. It's so like when people come to me, they already have a pretty good idea of what they're going to get. I mean, and another thing that I do too is like I don't do any long-term contracts. It's like I just recently I started doing a 3-month requirement, and then it goes to month. But I mean, like for the longest time, I just did straight up month to month. And the reason why I implemented the 3-month thing was because there were a couple times I was having assessments and they'd like no show and it throw off my schedule. And with as busy as I am nowadays, I just can't afford that. But I mean, like that for me, like having to communicate that to somebody of like what the investment's going to be on a monthly basis, whether they're working with me privately, or if they're doing my semi-private model, which will basically be up to 4 people at a time. Everybody's doing their own individual thing. It just makes it more effective on a, cost per session basis for them. That doesn't really, I don't really experience it that much anymore. I used to a lot, like when I was early in my career, because I still was relatively to my competition more expensive, and paying. I remember there was a competitor of mine that one of their trainers was an acquaintance of mine, and he said, yeah, when they were having their team meeting, like you got brought up, and they're like, how the hell is he charging the rates that he charges? And it's it was one of those things where like just like I invest a lot into what I do, and I'm very like I'm confident in what I do. I'm honest about it, and I can I can make people feel good. I mean, that's just the bottom line. Whether that's like physically through like the training methods that we use to help them feel better, look better, and perform better, or if it's just like my ability to connect with them as human beings. That's always been a strong suit of mine. And it's also, but the thing with that too is like, that's kind of why I got back into this place where now my company is just me, and it's been just me for 4 years now. And that's because I tried to scale that, and it was really, really difficult to scale that. And then, when COVID happened, it kind of gave me a time to reflect, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting further and further away from what I love to do. I'm managing a team more than I am working with the people that I love working with. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just going to go back to myself, just me doing it. So that's not something I run into a lot. And if I do run into it, I'm not a pushy salesman. Like I just, it's like, okay, like, that's fine. Like if you need help, if you let me know what you weren't feeling with me, like what I could have done better, or what maybe you didn't see something in me that you were looking for, let me know what that is, and I can refer you to somebody that I think could help you. I mean, that's my thing is like, no matter what, even if somebody can't afford to train with me, they don't want to train with me, it's like I want to help them in some way, and I'll give them an honest referral, because I'm not just going to refer anybody to or refer, to any gym, because that's my reputation. And I put too much into that to
Yeah, I
say,
mean, we talk to way more dentists and try to always give them the type of information that improves their situation, whether that they're gonna hire us or whether we're gonna help them with their transaction or not. I mean, it's the right it's the right thing to do when we want our one of our philosophies is just to leave each situation better than than we found it. And so it's super inspiring to hear that about you and about how you've kind of uh, grown your business and kind of molded it in your client's interest, which is really cool. If you could go back to and talk to your 20-year-old self, is there anything that you would say or do to tell them, or would you just say, hey man, I like what you've done, keep at it, because before you answer, I always, when I get this question, I'm like, I've made a ton of mistakes, but I wouldn't really change anything, because it's kind of the mistakes that I've made and the things that I've done. It hasn't always been pretty, but it has kind of shaped who I am as a person. But
yeah, I agree with that 100%, because I look at where I'm at, where I was at with where I was 20, and I had absolutely no direction in my life whatsoever. Like, I had no clue what I was doing. I had my own way of coping with things. We'll just say that. But I've shared this email with my clients in my newsletter probably about 2 or 3 times. But I remember once I think I was probably about 22 when I was like, okay, or 21 when I was like, okay, yeah, I want to be a personal trainer. And I remember what I created. Like, we go back that idea of like the perfect day, right? And I was looking at whatever class it was in. I remember writing this down, and my idea of happiness was that I work at Valley Total Fitness 40 hours a week. I make $80K a year, and I drive an F-150. And when I sent this email out to my clients, I said, I own my own gym. I make more money than that, and I drive an F-150, and none of those things have impact. Like, they've obviously, like, especially like the F-150, it's like, I like it, but it didn't like make me happier, more content with my life. Like, it's what I've done, like that journey to get from where, I was 21 or whatever, sitting in class of saying like, hey, this is like what I perceive to be happiness one day. And then where I'm at now, looking back at what I wrote when I'm 21, and I'm like, man, if I could go back to myself when I'm 21, I would have tried, if I couldn't be there with my 21-year-old self all the time, I would try to find my 21-year-old self. I'd say, hey, go find somebody that you really respect for the way that they live their life and have a similar life that you would like to have one day, and be around that person as much as you possibly can. Because I didn't have that.
Yeah,
That's really cool. And so it was like figuring out that on my own as I went through time. And, I definitely have had people like that. Like you talked about earlier, with like, having coaching for the business, right? That's something I've got right now. I've been through at least 10 business coaches since I've done this. And the one that I have now, it's going so well because I respect them first and foremost. And it's like, that's a big thing for me, is respect. And so like, if there's a mutual respect there, and we're both living our lives congruently with what our values are, like, that makes an environment for success. And like that's where I screwed up when I was younger. I didn't get around people like that. And so I acted like a shithead for a long time.
Well,
but
both Remy and I probably have.
Great advice for any 20-year-old, whether you're looking to become a personal trainer or a commercial real estate broker or a doctor for that matter. So
yeah.
I think we'd all benefit.
Very, very few people, I think, at that age really have any idea what they want to do. And Thank God we figured it out eventually, I suppose.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like to talk about, or that we didn't ask, that you'd like us to, or you wish we would have asked? Or
Not necessarily anything like that, but kind of going back, I mentioned earlier, I had the book coming out. Ideally, we'll see how this editing process continues to go along, but it's going smooth so far, knock on wood. So we're looking at like an October release date, no later than before 2024 is over. If people want to follow me on social media, I actually forgot what my handle is. I think it's on Instagram, the Physician's Personal Trainer. Same thing on LinkedIn. Those are like the two main platforms that I'm posting. Or I take that back. Those are two of the three main platforms I'm posting on. The other one is my YouTube page, and that's actually been growing since I started doing these daily videos. I think I've had like a 60 plus people subscribe in 40 something days or something like that, 50 days.
oh wow.
Yeah. So that's been kind of cool. Which, that's for somebody that's got a following of 20,000 followers or something like that, like whatever. But I mean, for me, I'm like, shoot, dude, I had like 170 like a month ago or something like that, a month and a half ago.
That's huge.
I got to like almost 230. So like the YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram is where you can find me. You can always email me at mike@AnnArborTrainer.com. I think that's about all I got.
Mike, we'll get all that information out about you when we put this out to the general public. So we'll let you know.
Yeah, man. Really appreciate your time. It was really cool to be able to do this with you, and look forward to seeing that book and catching up in the near future, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
See you guys.
See ya.